Okay, welcome back. We're going to now do some examples of finding angles. So the first one says sine A is equal to this number. Okay, so this is the ratio of opposite over hypotenuse. Why? Because we're given sine. Okay, so this is the ratio. We're saying the sine of the angle is equal to this. That's what we're given. We want to find out what A is. That means we're going to have to inverse, right? Take the inverse operation. So I'm going to show you a couple steps that's not in the book, but I want to show you where this comes from, okay? Because remember, the inverse function, because these are trigonometric functions, and the inverse function undoes. It cancels, in a manner of speaking, the function. Okay, so what happens when we take the inverse function of both sides? So what's going to happen? Let's take the inverse sine of both sides. So this is going to be inverse sine of what? Sine A. Now, whatever I do on one side of the equation, I have to do on the other side. So that means I'm going to take inverse sine of this side. Now, be careful. This -1 exponent does not mean 1 over sine A. That is not what it means. This just means an inverse function, okay? So please make sure, just don't miss, that's just a symbolism, okay? It's just saying how we denote an inverse function, okay? Now, what happens here? Well, again, inverse sine undoes sine. So these cancel each other out, and we get A is equal to sine inverse of 0.728. And so now this is what we're going to put in our calculator, okay? Now, how do I get to my inverse functions? Here's how you do it, okay? Now, right above the sine key, you can see in blue inverse sine. And above the cosine C, you have cosine inverse. And tangent is tangent inverse. Okay, so above each of these three keys is the inverse function. So to get there, I'm just going to push second and then the appropriate trigonometric key. Okay, now, in this case here, I want inverse sine. So I'm going to do second and I'm going to do sine. Okay, so now look at that. I got inverse sine. And now all I have to do is put in 0.728. So 0.728. Okay, just like that. Okay, now I'm just going to hit enter. And I get 46.7189, or if you want to round, 46.7190. So 7190, 46.7190. Okay, 46.7190. So 46.7190. Now, they want you to write this in DMS form. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, we know the whole number part. Oh, by the way, remember the mistake I made before. Make sure your calculator is in degrees. Okay, not radians, okay? So these are the degrees. So I double checked, okay? So these are degrees. So now I want to put this in DMS form, okay? So now it's 46 degrees, right? 46 degrees plus this fraction, 0.7190 degrees. Well, I want to put this into minutes, okay? How do I do that? Well, I use my conversion, okay? I take this fraction. This is the fractional part, right? So I take 0.7190 times what? Times the number of minutes in, the number of minutes in a degree, right? There's 60 minutes, right? These are degrees. 60 minutes in 1 degree, and the degrees cancel, and I end up with minutes. So I'm taking a fraction of a minute, of a degree. Okay, So what fraction of the 60 minutes is that? So I take, oops, let me do this. I'm actually gonna, one thing you do in the calculator, let me redo that. One thing you do in the calculator is you can keep it in your calculator and you can just subtract off the 46. So I'm just going to subtract 46, and so then it just leaves that on my calculator. So, and if I leave that, then what I can do is just take that answer and just say multiply by 60. And so what happens is I get that. So I get answer, it's taking my answer, and I'm going to multiply by 60 degrees in, or 60 minutes in a degree. And now that's what I get. Okay? 43.13. So I'm going to round to 43 minutes, right? So this is minutes. So it's approximately 43 minutes. I'm going to round to 43 minutes. So that means that my DMS form is 46, right? So this is going to be approximately 46 degrees and 43 minutes. And that's the inverse sine of the ratio. Okay, so now, what about this one? Now let's do cosine of this. Okay, so let's do that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do inverse cosine of both sides. So now I'm not going to do everything that I did here, but go do it for practice, right? So if I want to find A, then I know A is going to be the inverse cosine of this ratio, 0.296. And so now if I do inverse cosine, so I'm going to do second cosine of 0.296, enter, and I get 72.7825 approximately. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to subtract off the 72. Okay, I'm going to subtract off the 72. And now that's going to leave me this fraction, and I'm going to take that fraction of the 60 minutes. And that gives me 46.94, so approximately 47. So then this is going to be approximately 72 degrees and 47 minutes. Okay? And that's it. Have a great day.